Hi everyone, this article is about race, socioeconomic status, and creativity. Few studies on creativity of disadvantaged students have been completed. For this particular study, the determining factor of socioeconomic status was the area of residence and the father's occupation. Cicerelli's 1966 investigation compared the relationship between creative ability and socioeconomic status. The methods of creative assessment included the Minnesota test of creative thinking, verbal and nonverbal forms A. Cicerelli's results indicated that upper socioeconomic groups scored significantly higher than the lower socioeconomic group on nonverbal portions of the assessment. There were no significant differences observed for the other dimensions of the test, and it concluded there was little support for the notion that differences in creative ability are associated with socioeconomic class. Rogers' 1968 investigation was a visual creativity of advantaged and disadvantaged sixth grade students. The disadvantage were significantly greater than the advantage in figural fluency. Rogers' 1968 results were that disadvantaged children are more spontaneous in their behavior and actions, less conforming, more independent of their parents, and more highly developed in motor. These behaviors indicate characteristics of creative children. Rogers suggests that research seemed to indicate that disadvantaged children, if taught to use their creative powers, are more likely to be fluent producers of ideas than advantaged children. Cicerelli and Rogers' investigations conflicting results lead to the need for further investigation. Cicerelli's failure, it attributed to his grouping criteria. Low socioeconomic group were children of the blue-collar, semi-skilled, or skilled workers. The hypothesis made is that black disadvantaged children will exhibit creative abilities greater to those of white advantaged classroom peers. The investigation will test this hypothesis. The method of investigation was that the socioeconomic status groups were 52 black and 59 white children in the 8th grade of a Nashville metropolitan school system. The father's occupation determined the socioeconomic status. Blacks were primarily of low socioeconomic status, which means they were manual workers, protective workers, service workers, or farmers. Whites were primarily of the middle socioeconomic status. They were professionals, proprietors, managers, businessmen, or clerks. The method of investigation continued as their creative ability was measured by the Torrance test of thinking creatively with pictures, form A. Administration and scoring. They were administered and scored based on their fluency, their flexibility, originality, and elaboration. Their fluency focused on the number of relevant scorable responses made each group. The flexibility was a variety of ideas produced by shifting from one approach to another. Originality was determined for each response separately and was based on the weight given by each response. Elaboration was obtained by counting the different details used in developing the ideas expressed on each item. Responses showing statistical irregularities were assigned scoring weight of 2 points. Obvious, irrelevant, or incomprehensible responses were assigned weights of 0. A t-test was used for calculation of fluency, flexibility, originality, and elaboration scores for these black and white socioeconomic status groups. The results of the investigation showed that Black lower class groups performed significantly better than their white middle class colleagues on fluency, which is similar to what Rogers' results stated. For flexibility, the difference was not significant, though Black socioeconomic groups performed slightly better than their white peers. For originality, the measure which is perhaps closest to the essence of divergent thinking, the Black socioeconomic group performed better, although this finding does confirm Rogers' findings. Finally, for elaboration, there's no differences were observed, which contradicts the results reported by Cicerelli. This is the table that was presented in the article. So the table gives you kind of a breakdown of what the results were for fluency, flexibility, originality, and elaboration. So you can kind of compare the Black lower class with the white middle class individuals. And finally, our final thoughts or questions for consideration. The article begins with the statement, few studies on creativity of disadvantaged students have been completed. Do you feel the statement is still true today? Why or why not? Rogers stated that research seemed to indicate that disadvantaged children, if taught to use their creative powers, are more likely to be fluent producers of ideas than advantaged children. What are your thoughts on Rogers' statement? Do you agree or disagree with his statement? Why or why not? And the last question, do you have any suggestions for appropriate assessment of creativity for disadvantaged students? If so, please share. Thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed.